This is our amazing, very good presentation. It's about and all about cellular respiration. We think this is good, very good for your education. This process we like to call cellular respiration. It is a decomposition pathway that provides energy to cells to function. That's exactly what we need. This process is important because it gives you ATP, and that helps for us to make energy. There are two types of cellular respiration, aerobic and anaerobic, and they're in our presentation. One has oxygen, one does not. This is a thing that's in our earth, and there's a lot. We got glucose and oxygen. I said oxygen, not nitrogen. They yield carbon and water. And don't forget energy. The energy gives you energy, kind of like synergy. There's also a formula that keeps you from getting surgery. It's 6 plus 6 O2 yields 6 H2O with 6 CO2. There's also energy, which is really important. We think that a rap is very important.
10% hydrogen, 20% carbon, 15% energy, and that is important. 5% oxygen, 50% glucose. These calculations are not exact, but we are pretty close.
The first step is glycolysis, which has many steps. It has 6 carbon and ATP, and then it is swept from a phosphate group that mixes with the 6 carbon. The step is very, 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 very important, because after that, the molecule becomes unstable, but that's what's in 2, because it is able. The NAD plus turns to NADH. The 2 ADP go with the phosphate to make ATP late. After that, the 3 carbon from the group before turns into pyruvate, which is pretty hardcore. The end result is a net gain of 2. Miss Us and Miss Nala, no, this is true.
10% hydrogen, 20% carbon, 15% hydrogen, and that is important. 5% oxygen, 50% glucose. These calculations are not exact, but we are pretty close.
The second step is the Krebs cycle, which is not that hard. Ends up making 2 ATP, which is a reward. The long process happens in the mitochondria. The pyruvate puts in 2, and that's what we told you. And it starts off using pyruvate from glycolysis. It's a pretty long cycle, but that's just an analysis. When carbon of the 3 pair splits away, that it's a waste of CO2, and that's okay. The 2 carbon from before turn to acetic acid, mixed with coenzyme to form acetyl CO, clashes with octylate to form citrate. They form perfectly, the exact opposite of a debate. An enzyme acts upon it and it loses a carbon. The carbon leaves a CO2, but that's not important. The NAD plus turns to NADH because it gains an electron related to space. The new 5 carbon is called tetraglutarate. One thing that's not in the cycle is lactate. The NAD plus does what it did before. It turns to NADH. You guys don't know that anymore. The tetraglutarate breaks into 4 carbon that produces NADH and FAD, which is in the garden. The FAD turns to FADH. This all happens at a very good pace. The 2 ADP mixes with the phosphate group, forms 2 ATP, and now I'm gonna go who, but wait, the oxalate forms again. It goes 2 more times. It's not hard to explain.
It's 10% hydrogen, 20% carbon, 15% energy, and that is important. 5% oxygen, 50% glucose. These calculations are not exact, but we are pretty close.
The electron transfer system, also known as ETC. This is the final step into making more ATP. At the end of this process, there are 34 total ATP, which is not that. Or the NADH and FADH2 from before donate electrons through the door. This all happens in the mitochondria. It's just like the Krebs cycle. Does it really surprise you? There are proteins called cytochromes that help out with most of this, and this is known. The ETC separates hydrogen, electrons, and protons, just like how LeBron James got separated from that. Some of this hydrogen goes through the ATP synthase. ATP goes at ADP, and this FADH2 builds up the ATP, which is helping us with our energy. At the end, the waste product is water, which is formed by oxygen, kind of like father and a daughter.
10% hydrogen, 20% carbon, 15% energy, and that is important. 5% oxygen, 50% glucose. These calculations are not exact, but we are pretty close.
Wait, It's not done, we still got a little more. It's called fermentation, and we know you're not bored. It's a process of anaerobic respiration, and we are almost done with our amazing presentation. This process happens when oxygen is not present, and this process is not very hesitant. It happens instead of glycolysis. It's just not that weird. The NADH goes to NAD+, and everyone cheered. Without oxygen, the change is pyruvate. When oxygen is not present, it turns into lactate. This process happens in the cytoplasm. And now we're going to leave. JK, we almost have the end result is a net gain of 2. Our students, including Miss Nolly, know this is true. It's true!